Problem solved. Lawyers.com. Every legal issue, one legal source.
Buy one, get 5 free at Joseph A. Bank. Just buy one suit, get a second suit, plus 2 dress shirts and 2 silk ties free. That's any suit in the store. Buy one and your second suit is free. Plus 2 dress shirts and 2 silk ties. Absolutely free at Joseph A. Bank.
A few seconds before 8 o'clock Pacific, 11 Eastern time, and the poll closings reflect that. California, Idaho, Oregon, and Washington. And NBC News is now stating about the California Senate race that it is too early to call, although the incumbent, Barbara Boxer, against whom $11 billion has been spent, has the lead at this point, but it's too early to call. In the Oregon Senate race, Ron Wyden will be returned, according to our NBC projection, in what is not much of a surprise by a stretch of the imagination. Mike Crapo, the Republican in Idaho, will also be going back to Washington. That one already called by NBC News. And in Washington State, too early to call in Patty Murray's race for re-election against Dino Rossi, and no lead announced to that point, at least by our decision desk. So all of the decisions here, Wyden and Crapo. Thus, no additions to the pickups, which you saw. The Feingold seat, Wisconsin gone, Arkansas, Lincoln, Indiana by, and at this hour, the Senate 46-44 to independents, and that would obviously indicate that 8 Senate seats are yet to be decided tonight. Also of note, California's governor's race, another $11 billion job. Jerry Brown and Meg Whitman, too early to call. Polls closed a minute and 7 seconds ago. I think that's a reasonable expectation at this point. And there it is. So we have Wyden and an early lead for Barbara Boxer in California.
Well, you know, it's not a good night for people who have tried to work across the aisle, and Lawrence knows how this works. You had Wyden cutting a deal with Bob Bennett. Bob Bennett got blown out of the saddle for sitting down and trying to come up with a health care plan that made some sense to at least the 2 guys who did it. McCain-Feingold. What happened to Feingold?
Right, yeah.
McCain gets reelected by going arch-right and joining his polarized party. What happened to Feingold? Would somebody please tell me what happened to Feingold?
I thought
he did one of the best things that's been done for years, McCain-Feingold, and yet goodbye.
McCain, I think the situation with Russ Feingold in the Senate is that Russ Feingold never earned the loyalty of his party because he was so iconoclastic, because he went his own way, because he made principled votes on things like the Patriot Act, even when everybody else in the party wanted him to do something else. He was not a go-along-to-get-along Democrat.
But why
so
in Wisconsin?
Never earned national favor from anybody other than progressives.
He got blown out tonight.
He got blown out tonight, but every wind against him in Wisconsin and no outside help at all. And then he's against somebody who's got a ton of outside help and a ton of money. He just didn't have anybody supporting him because the National Party never backed him up.
Rachel, what does it do to the argument that's going on inside the Democratic Party between progressives and others in the Democratic Party about how Democrats should run? Did Russ Feingold lose because he wasn't liberal enough?
I think that the way that Russ Feingold ran here was almost immaterial. He got blown out of the water in terms of money and in terms of the wins in his district. I mean, you can blame it on the way that he campaigned, but I think if you could counterfactual it and you could make him campaign a different way, I don't see those numbers moving very much. I really don't.
Let's look at that other outstanding race that energizes the West in Nevada, where Ed Schultz of the Ed Show here on MSNBC is standing by and has been throughout the evening at the Harry Reid headquarters. What are we hearing in this one? Obviously, our stance on it, it's too early to call. An hour after poll closing, what are you hearing there, Ed?
Well, believe it or not, there's a Tea Party event that's going on the other side of this facility, and Joe the plumber just walked by. I mean, I don't know if he lost all his money on the crap table or just happened to go in the wrong door. It's too early to call, as you say. There's no question about that. But there are some very encouraging signs. As I said earlier tonight, this quiet confidence, it's now starting to turn into a positive whisper for the Harry Reid camp. The early voting, 380,000 early votes were cast here in Nevada. And the voter turnout, we are told, is not as good as they thought it was going to be, which Reid people are saying that's good for us. The comment from them is that we feel pretty good about what's going on right now. Still too early to call, but you know, a 500 vote victory here is going to be a wide margin of victory because Harry Reid's had him even closer than that before. But the room is starting to fill up here. The polls have closed here in Nevada, and they're pretty confident, feeling pretty good right now, but still too close to call. But they are really encouraged by that early vote. If I could just throw one thing about Wisconsin, I did a number of town hall meetings in Wisconsin, and I had some auto workers come over from Janesville, and I asked them, how do you feel about Russ? They said, we feel good about anybody if they can get us a job. It's jobs. Russ Feingold. I mean, if you're a liberal, you're hurting tonight. This guy was tough on the Bush administration. This guy was tough on the Patriot Act. He didn't think health care. He didn't think Wall Street reform went far enough. He worked it. Russ Feingold did a minimum of 70 town hall meetings a year, every year he's been in the Senate since 1992. Well liked by the progressive community. The question is what happened? What happened was that a self-financed guy came in, outspent him 4-1. And I think you could be the best lefty in the world, but if you're outspent 4-1, you could lose by a big margin. And this doesn't bode well for the next senator who's up. Russ Feingold was considered to be the most popular of the two. Herb Kohl is going to be up in 2012. This does not bode well for the Democrats in the Badger State. A tough night at the office for the liberals, no question about it. And it's going to be a very pivotal state in 2012. Let's not forget that President Obama, not long ago, was in Madison, Wisconsin, and drew a huge crowd. Can we come to the conclusion tonight? It didn't matter.
Well, you know, when we talk about money in races, we're going to have to face the fact that it's not the full explainer everyone thinks it is. If money beat Russ Feingold in Wisconsin, why isn't it beating Jerry Brown in California? Why didn't Linda McMahon's money? She spent more per vote than anyone running in this country. Linda McMahon spent $37 a vote. Why didn't that money work? This is about real candidates. This is about real positions they've taken, especially if they're incumbents like Russ Feingold. And to pretend that voting on Russ Feingold has nothing to do with his record as an incumbent, I think is to ignore the reality of life on the ballot as a Democrat in Wisconsin and a liberal Democrat.
Where did he let Wisconsin down in Wisconsin?
This I don't know. I'm not saying I know, but I'm not going to jump to the notion that, oh, all they did was bring in money and that was the end of them, because that did not destroy Jerry Brown. That did not destroy Blumenthal.
No, but look
money
at what's
doesn't
been happening
always
in
win.
Wisconsin. The incumbent Democratic governor there has a 27% approval rating, $7 billion state budget deficit, state furloughs, big tax hikes.
What does it have to do with a popular United States senator if he's popular?
That's what I'm saying, is that there are down ticket effects. I think that happens. I think that's why we're going to see the Democrat have it.
In 1994, the Democratic senator was reelected easily. In the same state.
If you have a thesis about why Russ Feingold is losing,
I don't.
I would love to hear it. My
don't.
thesis is that there are other wins that explain what just happened. In terms of what could have happened differently in that race, we can counterfactual it. If you really believe he could have campaigned his way out of this race, I would love to hear how he could have campaigned differently in a more effective way, but I just don't see it.
A liberal was defeated by a Republican, by voters who had information about this one being a liberal, this one being a Republican. We have to then assume the voters are completely irrational and don't know what they're doing, or we assume they do know the difference between a liberal and a Republican, and they made that choice based on him being a liberal and him being a Republican, money being whatever it was in that situation.
With the postmortems to resume, let's look at what still is going on in those critical and tight races. We mentioned Illinois foremost among them, in Pennsylvania. Chuck Todd, looking at this election by the numbers, with, as the line from Citizen Kane goes, with the church counties still to report. Chuck, where is that vote not yet in from in these key Senate races?
Well, as you know, one more Senate seat that Democrats win here: Pennsylvania, Illinois, Colorado, California, or Washington, and they will likely hold the Senate because they're heavily favored to hold Hawaii. Let me show you what's going on in Pennsylvania. Here, I can tell you this: Toomey has pulled ahead. Sestak folks ought to be a little bit nervous here because all of Philadelphia is basically in, and he is not going to have a 300,000 vote margin out of Philadelphia. That said, Our numbers, folks, tell us this is going to be decided by less than 1% at this point. Let me take you to Illinois Senate. Wondering what is going on there? Well, right now, I think Mark Kirk has a very narrow lead. I can tell you this, his district has come in big for him, the collar counties as they're known, outside of Chicago. But again, our modeling shows that this could be decided by less than 1%. One of those, we're going to let it all the vote come in there. And then finally, let me take you to the really two close governor's races that everybody's been asking me about tonight. One is in Ohio as to why this hasn't been called, even though the Kasich margin looks fairly large. There's a lot of vote left still in Cuyahoga County, home of Cleveland. So that's important to know. And also in Florida, folks are probably wondering why this race hasn't been called, because Rick Scott seems to have a decent-sized lead for 81% in. Guess what? A lot of Palm Beach County hasn't reported, and the senior vote in South Florida is one that the Scott folks thought they would lose a lot of because of all those allegations about the very large billion-dollar Medicare fraud fine that he had to pay, and Alex Sink was counting on that. By the way, guys, I want to give you a quick update in the House world in this front. The old bulls that we've been following, a couple of them have already lost. Rick Boucher, which we've told you about, he was elected in 1982. Those Reagan midterms that Democrats did so well, he's gone. Look at Ched Edwards in Texas. This guy's a 20-year veteran. He's gone. I want to take you to Missouri 4 and Ike Skelton. This race hasn't yet been called, but he has been trailing here. There we go. Get our numbers here. Vicki Hartzler, as you can see, she's got an 8,000 vote lead. A lot of the vote in, 86%. He could go down tonight. Let me take you to one more, John Spratt. We haven't called this race. He's been trailing all night. We're getting close to calling this race, but not yet. They're waiting for some key precincts with heavy African-American vote that may yet pull Spratt out, but he's been trailing all night. And then let me take you to the longest-serving member of Congress, the most famous name perhaps in the Democratic caucus these days. That is John Dingell in the 15th district here in Michigan. Looks like he's going to survive, but this has been very narrow. Look at this. Less than 4,000 votes separate him. Lots of Ann Arbor is still not reported. This probably bails him out, but I'll tell you, it is very close. He may be the lone old bull to survive, but I heard, Chris Matthews, I heard you shaking your head there. Ike Skelton, Ched Edwards, Rick Boucher. These are big names in the Democratic caucus.
Yeah, I've seen this happen before. You have this wave, and all of a sudden, even guys, politicians who have had this tremendous connection with their local people. Just remember, though, every year there's new 18-year-olders coming into the system, new people that don't know you, don't pay much attention to politics generally, and they want to express an attitude this time. And a lot of this election this year is attitude. It's not deep ideological shifting. I don't think you're seeing the Republican Party celebrating its identity tonight. It's more like taking advantage of an annual or a biannual, whatever, a turn of events here. The events suck for the Democrats right now, and that's the key reality. The unemployment rate.
Chuck Todd, Inside the Numbers. Thanks much for those, Chuck. We'll check back with you later in the hour. One other note, though, to balance what you said about the younger voters. There was a note from the New York Times exit polling earlier tonight that said that 1/4 of voters were 65 and older. So there's also a backlash from these essentially.
No, the Democratic Party benefits from the younger voters. I'm just talking about new faces, new people. I'm trying this idea of an old bull as somehow have this permanent advantage. Sooner or later, people begin to forget you.
One good bit of news for you. Speaking of old bull, Michelle Bachmann has been reelected.
Well, that was probably the result of her decision. Now, this is scary about politics. Not to concentrate on substantive bread and butter issues at home, but to go around the country as a troubadour, as I said, and becoming this sort of outrageous spokesperson for the Tea Party crowd. And it's worked for her at home, obviously. Well, not a lot, but yeah, it's enough.
Michelle Bachmann, of
She'll
course.
be there for a while.
I want to know if she's going to keep talking about re-education camps and internment camps and a one-world currency. There's rumors that she's going to try for Mike Pence's leadership seat if Pence does not keep that seat for other reasons because he's got other ambitions. If she tries for it, does she keep talking about a one-world currency?
No.
No, she'll be talking about debt ceiling legislation.
Oh, please.
She'll have to go around the floor getting other members to vote for debt ceiling.
A perfect opportunity for us to take our break. We'll continue with our midterms coverage right after this.
The Place for Politics 2010, brought to you by the 100% electric, no-gas Nissan Leaf. Innovation for the planet, innovation for all.